Welcome to Spectrum News at 4. I am Rita Inung, coming to you live from Uyo. Let's take a look at the headlines. The federal government faults Asuu'S rejection of Tissf, insists scheme supports welfare. Senate confirms Kingsley Ude as minister to replace Uche Nnaji. Plus, Typhoon Kalmegi makes landfall in Vietnam after killing 114 in Philippines. Details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned. We begin the news at this national scene where the federal government has countered the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, over its rejection of the newly introduced Tertiary Institution Staff Support Fund, Tissf, insisting that the initiative is designed to enhance the welfare and productivity of both academic and non-academic staff in tertiary institutions across the country. ASUU had described the Tissf as a debt trap, urging the government to instead use the funds to offset withheld salaries and sign a renegotiated agreement with the union. However, the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, while speaking during the disbursement of ceremonial checks and letters of approvals to beneficiaries at the Federal University of Technology, Akure, in Ondo State, he said the fund was conceived as part of government's broader strategy to strengthen staff welfare, institutional productivity, and innovation. According to him, over 9,000 staff have benefited in the first phase of the interest-free loan scheme, representing 28% of 33,000 verified applicants drawn from 219 federal and state tertiary institutions nationwide. And from the Red Chambers, the Senate has confirmed Dr. Kingsley Ude, a senior advocate of Nigeria SAN from Enugu State, as a minister of the Federal Republic. Ude's confirmation followed a screening session held on the Senate floor today. He previously served as the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Enugu State. His nomination came weeks after the resignation of Uche Nnaji, the former Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, who stepped down from President Tinubu's cabinet and over a certificate scandal. Away from that, Nigeria has taken the lead in West Africa's climate action drive with the submission of its third nationally determined contribution, NDC 3.0, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, positioning the country for fresh global partnerships and investments at the ongoing COP30 summit in Belém, Brazil. Vice President Kashim Shettima is expected to unveil Nigeria's green transition roadmap before world leaders, articulating the country's strategy to convert climate commitments into actionable projects that attract financing and technology. The Director General of the National Council on Climate Change, NCCCC, Tionoye Majekduni, announced the Nigerian's milestone in an interview with journalists ahead of the COP30 opening session. She noted that Nigeria's early submission of its NDC 3.0 makes it the first West African nation to do so and a continental front-runner in climate ambition and readiness. On electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says 75% of pre-election litigations the Commission was joined in were due to lack of internal democracy and leadership tussles among political parties. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amupiton made this known in an interview with the newsmen in Awka, Anambra State. Amupiton said that there has been bothered by the menace because of the impact on the electoral process and Nigeria democracy. He said Nigerians continue to scrutinize the country's election but ignored the political parties' recruitment process for their candidate and internal democracy. And back here, the Akwa Ibom State Executive Council has approved a budget estimate of 1.390 trillion naira for the 2026 fiscal year for onward transmission to the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly for consideration and passage. The decision was reached during the enlarged Executive Council meeting presided over by Governor Umar Eno at the State ESCO Chambers, Government House, Uyo. The State Commissioner for Information, Anyekan Umana, who briefed Government House correspondents shortly after the meeting, said the proposed budget is anchored on deepening dividends of the Arise agenda, focusing on agricultural development, rural development, infrastructural development, expansion, security, education, tourism, growth, healthcare, economic diversification, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. According to him, the 2026 fiscal plan emphasizes the completion of the ongoing flagship projects, job creation through MSME support and tourism promotion, improved transportation through CNG buses and ferries, enhanced transparency, fiscal discipline, and human capital development, particularly for women, youth, and vulnerable groups.
Several hours of deliberations and consideration of memos, several resolutions were reached. The Minister of Budget and Economic Planning presented today to the enlarged ESCO the 2026 budget proposals of Akwa Ibom State Government. The budget size of 1,390 billion naira was presented and considered by ESCO. After deliberations on all aspects of the provisions, the budget was approved by the Executive Council for onward transmission to the State House of Assembly for due passage. Following the report from the Commissioner for Health on the ongoing implementation of the state of emergency in the health sector, the Executive Council directed the immediate deployment of all the re-engaged retired health workers and health professionals on contract basis to various
also disclosed that Council ratified an upward review of the total project cost of the aviation village at Victor Atta International Airport to cover dualization of access roads, perimeter fencing, electrical works, concrete paving, and other key infrastructure. In the health sector, the Council directed the immediate deployment of retired health workers re-engaged on contract and ordered the commencement of work on 8 general hospitals and 29 primary healthcare centers across the state, stressing that the State Public Health Laboratory and Isolation Center will also receive urgent attention, while the commissioning of General Hospital Lukanafon has been shifted to November 18, 2025.
Following the report from the Commissioner for Health on the ongoing implementation of the state of emergency in the health sector, the Executive Council directed the immediate deployment of all the re-engaged retired health workers and health professionals on contract basis to various health facilities within the state with immediate effect. The Executive Council also directed the Ministry of Health to immediately commence work on the 8 general hospitals earmarked for rehabilitation, 29 primary health care centers, and the molecular diagnostic and state public health laboratory and isolation centers here in Uyo. The Governor and Council also approved a new date for the commissioning of the General Hospital Okanafon for Tuesday, November 18, 2025, to allow for test running of the facility before the act.
In a move to regain state assets and strengthen the financial base of Anchor Insurance Limited, the Council approved 4.15 billion naira for the recovery of prime properties previously swapped during recapitalization. The Commissioner noted that the following a presentation by the Attorney General, the Executive Council approved the transmission of 3 executive bills to the House of Assembly, including the domestication and harmonization of taxes and levies and the state property tax law in line with the National Tax Act. Government House correspondent Jane Uwa reports that the information boss further explained that Council also received a briefing from Akwa Ibom Internal Revenue Service on the new tax law by the federal government and its implication for the state. And moving now to Africa, where Mauritania's former president Mohamed Aziz has lost his final appeal of a 15-year prison sentence for corruption while in office. Abdel Aziz was initially sentenced to 5 years in prison in 2023 after being found guilty of amassing assets and capital worth $70 million through illicit means. His lawyers argued that the trial was politically motivated, but a first appeal of his conviction was rejected in May 2025, and his sentence increased by 10 years. After seizing power in a 2008 coup, Abdel Aziz was twice elected president and served from 2009 to 2019 when he stepped down. In 2021, he was charged with illicit enrichment, abuse of functions, influence peddling and laundering alongside 10 other prominent figures, including 2 former prime ministers. And still in Africa, Cameroonian security forces reportedly killed 48 people in a crackdown on protests against re-election of President Paul Biya. The Cameroonian government has not provided a figure or conducted an investigation into the killings. Reports say the majority of victims were killed by gunshots, while others succumbed to the injuries from being beaten by security forces. Most of the deaths occurred in the littoral region, where the port city of Douala is located. Recall that official results gave President Biya victory with nearly 54% of the vote, while his former ally Issa Tichiroma, who had declared victory on the first day of the counting, came second. On the foreign scene, Typhoon Kalmegi, Asia's most powerful tropical storm this year, has made landfall in Vietnam. Reports say Kalmegi has reportedly killed at least 114 people and drowned entire towns in the Philippines. Vietnam, already battling record rains and floods, have been warned to expect waves of up to 8 meters in some areas. Vietnam authorities warn that hundreds of flights will be affected as 6 airports in the country have been forced to close. And still on the foreign scene, U.S. officials have said that the scheduled capacity for flights was being cut by 10% in 40 busy air traffic areas nationwide today as the longest government shutdown drags on. Federal agencies have been grinding to a halt since Congress failed to approve funding past September 30, with some 1.4 million federal workers from air traffic controllers to park wardens still on enforced leave or working without pay. Federal Aviation Administration Chief Brian Bedford said the cuts would be at 40 high-traffic environment markets, according to a proposed list provided to newsmen. Some of the nation's busiest airports in Atlanta, Dallas, Los Angeles and New York could be among those that have been hit. And still to come in the news, FIFA appoints South African referees for Nigeria vs Gabon playoff. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more in a moment. Many thanks for staying tuned and welcome back to Spectrum News within the hour. Continuing from the business scene where Genesis Energy Limited and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited have announced plans to supply excess power generated from the Port Harcourt Refining Company to the national grid. The partnership, unveiled during an official visit by the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, to Genesis Energy operational site within the Port Harcourt Refinery in Eleme, Rivers State, is aimed at improving grid stability, expanding electricity access, and advancing Nigeria's energy transition goals. Genesis Energy said in a statement that it operates the nation's largest licensed private off-grid clean power plant, an 84-megawatt facility that supplies sustainable energy to the Port Harcourt refinery, which is currently dormant due to ongoing technical review. Recall that the Power Minister has recently lamented that Nigeria had over 10,000 megawatts of power locked in idle plants across the nation. And still in business, food and beverage imports increased to 677.3 billion naira in the first half of 2025, a 44.48% rise from 468.76 billion naira in the same period of 2024, prompting renewed calls for stronger government support to enhance local industry capacity and reduce dependency on imports. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics showed that while the value of primary food and beverage imports, mainly for household consumption, surged, the value of processed food and beverages consumed by households recorded a marginal 1.85% decline, falling from 699.58 billion naira in Q1 2024 to 686.81 billion naira in Q1 2025. Meanwhile, primary food and beverage imports, mainly for industrial use, grew in 6 months by 1.37% from 969.22 billion naira to 982.49 billion naira, while processed imports for industrial use rose by 7.28% from 984.16 billion naira to 1.0 trillion naira in the same period. In health, the chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Health, Amos Magaji, has stated that the committee has begun engagements with the leadership of the Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, to resolve the ongoing crisis in the health sector. He said the move was to ensure accountability and transparency in government commitments. Speaking with newsmen, Magaji declared that the House will no longer stand aside in industrial disputes between the federal government and medical unions, stressing that future agreements must be sincere, practical, and reflected in the national budget. The lawmaker lamented that lack of sincerity in past negotiations fueled recurring strikes in the health sector. Magaji emphasized that transparency was key to lasting peace with unions and the federal government. And still in health, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention has said the Lassa fever death toll in Nigeria has risen to 176. The latest epidemiological report released by the NCDC stated that as of epidemiological week 43, 2025, the case fatality rate now stands at 18.4%, up from 16.6% recorded during the same period in 2024. According to the World Health Organization, Lassa fever is an acute viral hemorrhagic illness caused by the Lassa virus, a member of the arenavirus family of viruses, who said humans usually become infected with Lassa virus through exposure to food or household items contaminated with urine or feces of infected Mystomes rat. The disease is endemic in the rodent population in parts of West Africa. The UN body noted that Lassa fever is known to be endemic in Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, Mali, Sierra Leone, Togo, and Nigeria, but probably exists in other West African countries as well. To sports news now, where FIFA has appointed a South African refereeing crew for Nigeria's Super Eagles 2026 FIFA World Cup playoff against Gabon, with Tom Abonjil set to oversee the first leg in Rabat. Abondio will serve as center referee. Zakile Siwela will take up the role of assistant referee, while another South African, Akona Makalima, will be in charge of video assistant referee VAR. The referee assessor for the match will come from Benin Republic. Meanwhile, the FIFA decision has triggered strong pushback from Nigeria, where officials and fans have questioned the neutrality of the appointments. And still in sports, Inter Miami captain Lionel Messi has named his ultimate achievement in the sport. Speaking at the American Business Forum in Miami, Messi said winning the FIFA World Cup was his ultimate achievement in football. Recall that the Argentine forward led his country's football national team to win the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. On our entertainment news, Nollywood actress Regina Daniels has expressed gratitude to her parents for their unwavering support and effort to secure her brother Sammy West's release after his alleged arrest. In a social media post, Regina commended them for putting aside their differences and working together for the sake of their children's happiness and well-being. She revealed that her parents are in Abuja, actively working to secure Sammy's release. Regina expressed frustration at the prolonged detention, stating that it was taking too long, but was confident that they would get her brother out. And that's all we have for you on the news at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 4. I am Rita Inong. Enjoy the rest of your day.